Thank you, friends, for joining yet another episode of Share the Well. In this episode, Abhilash and I continue the conversation around my journey of being an individual contributor and being a manager. It's been fun to kind of answer some of the questions that Abhilash had, and also to prepare and reflect back in terms of what has happened over the years. Hopefully you enjoy this episode. It's a little shorter than the previous one, and hopefully you pick out one thing. As I always say, there's a 1 degree change that can make a humongous change in the years ahead. So pick up one thing. If there's anything that you guys like, drop a comment in the platform that you stream this podcast, or visit our website, sharethewell.community. Enjoy the episode. We'll catch you guys at the end of the episode.
Well, evidently, as a manager, you like what you do, right? It seems from the way of this side of the table. So what do you like the best about being a manager, and what do you like the least about being a manager?
I think seeing, I've written some notes here. I'm just looking at it. I really think that when people break the glass ceiling, as we say, is really a joy. I've had so many people in my teams in the past have actually become more successful than me, and I just love that. I just love that. And people have gone to establish companies who were in sales teams with me and are doing so well. People have actually become CEOs and CFOs and regional heads in different countries, and I'm like, that is awesome. I've had the privilege of adding some value, as I mentioned, to them, and there's a deep respect for one another even now. In many occasions, some people write back and say, Don, thank you for what you did. It's great to kind of have that validation, I guess, but obviously I don't look for validation, but when it comes, I do enjoy it. And currently, to kind of discover people's strengths and realign those strengths for them, for me has been wonderful. People don't see their own strengths sometimes. I observe. God gives me the discernment to observe. And last of all, I think the biggest driver for me is God has created every human being in his image, and redeeming and seeing God in there when I see them is the most exciting thing for me. Yeah. So God has obviously reshaped the way I think and I see people. So when he says his image is on them, I'm looking for that. And there's a level of redemption of his image that I'm always trying to get to, knowing fully well that he did redeem and he does redeem. So for me, that's been the most exciting of all. That's the basis, I'd say, for everything else, right? People breaking the glass ceiling and discovery process, all outcome of that base and fundamental belief.
What about the flip side?
For me, the one that I've really struggled is really performance management. So we have year-end performance management, right? So it is the thing that we have to do, right? And I think corporate America or corporate global is changing, right? We got away from some of the stuff that was really not needed. I think the bottom bell curve or whatever, right? I think we've gotten rid of that. That was GE's kind of, Jack Welch's, philosophy that we borrowed and, kind of implemented. So I think we've gotten away from that. A lot of the corporates have gotten away from that, but it still
for
is
good, right?
For good. Yeah. For good. Many corporates have kind of abandoned that. But I think it still is, it's a better process right now, a much better process right now. That's one thing I've struggled with. And comparing people's performance seems to be a little tough, but because of the simplicity right now of performance management, I really enjoy it now. But early, I really struggled with it. It was a battle, brutal. People come out with scars after the meetings, and with between managers. But that's something that I've struggled with, and as a personality, I've struggled with giving feedback to people. I want to please people, right? That's my general attitude and outlook, and sometimes I fail to give them some of the truthful feedback. Though I think I've improved, but I can do better. I need to kind of step back and help do that better. I guess something that I struggle with. Yeah, those
Okay.
two.
Hmm. Well, well, many of our listeners may not be managers, right, at their work. But what do you
Right.
think? Are there any uh, traits of your experience as a manager that can transfer over to an individual contributor who's listening to our show? Something that you can pass on?
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned before, right, the individual contributor and the manager, the mindset is still the same, right? Uh, what I've adopted, whether I was an individual contributor or whether I was a manager, whether I'm a manager now, is I make it again. I try and put this in triangles, right? I say, let's talk about what the value is for the we or us, right? First. So what happens is it gets away from you versus me, first thing, right? So once you get away from you versus me, and I think we have this we have this phrase in corporate world, WIIFM. Have you heard of that?
Yes, what's in it for me? Yes.
Yeah, it's a poor construct. It makes people selfish, I think. This is my opinion, right? It's Donald Trump's opinion. And people want to say, what's in it for me, basically, kind of saying what's in it for you, essentially, right? But it still is focused on the me, right? So I think it's probably detrimental. So I kind of get away from that paradigm and I say, hey, let's talk about the we first, right? Then let's talk about you. Post that, let's talk about me,
Hmm.
right? So my simple principle, I'm getting to mindsets, right? Mindset is you, I become number three, right? So it's the same mindset when you move to as a manager. So you can have the same mindset. I have the same mindset from an individual contributor standpoint as well. I was a program, project manager, program manager, whatever. And as a person, as a manager as well, I have the same mindset, and it's easy, right? When people understand, okay, this is a collective we, and that is his focus is not really on himself; is focusing on me, and then obviously there's a part that I have to play as well, right, in that, and there's a benefit for me. I cannot forget that. I think it connects with those laws that Jesus gave, right? Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? So the focus is outside before it comes inside. You're kind of sandwiched in between. Right? So that I'd say, as an individual contributor, I just maintain the same thing. It's developed, right? Obviously I didn't have it. Again, mentoring really helps kind of focus on that. So that's what I would say.
Well, you also mentioned that you have managed large teams, right? Up to
Mm,
2,500 people.
mm.
So we are now moving into the direction of being more than a manager. I don't know if I can say use the word more, but we are talking of the area of leadership, right?
Right.
Are they the same thing? Being a manager and being a leader?
Yeah, I don't think they are. And
Okay.
you don't have to be a manager to be a leader, and not every manager is a leader, right? So I'd say leadership is inspiration,
Okay.
and management or manager is execution.
Okay.
So I think it's for me, it's easy line to kind of remember like that, because as a manager, your duty is to get stuff. done, right? Um, Now you can get it done by hook or crook, right? Or, by road rolling or whatever you want to do to, bash people through and get your stuff done. And I've done that. Or you could take another route and inspire people to do that task. And so suddenly you're kind of changing, you're changing your paradigm, right? So you're inspiring people to be able to do their task rather than just making sure that it gets done. And so you don't have to be a manager. And I give this example all the time. And in Accenture, I used to have a guy, he was from, I think, a middle class family, it's not like so well to do or whatever. When he came in dressed, right, into office, that dude looked sharp all the time. And this guy was like, just a programmer, right? He just joined the organization. Every day he would look sharp. I used to always tell him, Lakshmikant, you are an inspiration, you're a leader of how to look when you get to work. I'm inspired by you. And so that's why I said anybody can be a leader. When the person inspires, you then have followers. Manager is, I think, essentially a role,
While
but
leadership
leadership
is
is
a trait.
exactly. It is. It truly gets down to character, right, of a leader, and so I think we very flippantly sometimes use leadership just because of seniority.
Right, right.
You're a leader, leader, leader. We say leadership team or whatever. But I have experienced and seen, not the current one, but in the past, people who are in senior positions who are actually poor leaders. They don't
Mhm.
set the example. It's unfortunate, but it's true, and I think you'll find that across the board.
Yes, yes. It's quite common today that business and corporate gets a bad rap, right? Business and corporate inherently is evil or close to evil, if I may say. Um, what do you think is the proper perspective required for someone who works in the corporate?
Yeah, I think the corporate also we have not done ourselves a favor by being excessively driven by top line and bottom line. You can see there is globally a change in the way businesses run. And you'll hear this word sustainability across
Hmm.
the board, right? It could take different forms and means, right? It could be carbon footprint, climate change, diversity and and inclusion, right? Race relationships right now. So I think the paradigms have changed. We've had a bad rap over the years, kind of saying these guys are only interested in squeezing the last rupee or dollar or whatever currency you're in out of you, right? So I think we've as corporates, I think we've changed now, or we are at least trying to change in terms of moving to more sustainable means of operating. So you're not really removing the last piece of resource from that particular country or people group or whatever. But for me, the concept, I think is a shout out to one of the organizations that I mean, you introduced me, right? The Praxis Labs,
Oh,
right?
right.
Right group, kind of shout out for them. Is they have a very interesting model called the redemption model, right? And I love that. The model is to kind of say, how do we redeem, what is not into what it should be? And so, that's how I see. So I work in pharmaceutical, and I love it because we are extending life of people whose lives potentially could not be extended given the therapeutic or vaccines that we bring about. It also prolongs, sorry, it brings adds quality to life sometimes. Like I'm diabetic, so I take Merck drugs, and my life is enhanced by it, or it prevents sorry it makes people healthy, from sickness to healthy, right? So I love it because it's a way of redeeming, right? Was if we were not there, we would not bring all these therapies, and we're so proud. I think we celebrated 129th or 130th year of our existence. So all these years we've been having patience as our focus, and I love the fact that we do work like that. In the meanwhile, we do make money, right? But also that money is used for refueling and refunneling, and also to the society. We've done a lot of work, as Merck, done a lot of work to kind of help societies. Yeah, yeah, like river blindness, right? Nobody cared for river blindness, but we took it upon ourselves and gave those drugs free, to those people in Africa. So there's good that can come out of it. Again, goes back to your previous question, leadership. You don't have the right leadership, it becomes extremely difficult. Then it just becomes, filling our coffers with cash, right? Which is detrimental.
So you're saying that to get the proper perspective, it's helpful to understand the redemptive aspect of your work, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. People don't think too much about it, but I think it's, if you take a pause and kind of understand how is this affecting the redemptive work that Christ did on the cross, how is that even a reflection of the work that I do? It's really helpful for people to kind of find the quote unquote purpose and meaning behind their work.
Hmm. Well, while we are on this, how how does your faith as a Christian
Mm,
transfer over to your work? Or maybe
yeah.
you have already touched upon this.
I've touched a little bit, but I have to say it doesn't. It used to bother me earlier on that these were dichotomous, and they have been synthesized over the years now. I cannot be 9 to 5 somebody and then after that somebody. And I think the corporate has helped. It's like bring your whole self to work is a idea and a concept that is coming to many different corporates globally, at least. I don't know about all in India, but globally it is being accepted that you can bring your whole self to work, meaning I don't have to cover my identity of who I am a follower of Christ, and I am not ashamed to be able to share that. There are many different perceptions of what that means, and I have to be compassionate and patient to work through some of the frameworks that have been built up in people's minds about what that means for them, right?
Right.
So, so, so I think in the last, I'd say about 8 or 10 years, it maybe even 12 years, I've been able to kind of work through that. Uh, Not meaning to say you should know who I am, right? No, they don't know. They've heard they've heard bad things sometimes about who a Christian is, and I have to kind of work through some, or they've had bad experiences of people who have declared themselves to be Christian, or they have images of Hollywood or whatever, right? Oh, these Christian nations do that, and so you have to kind of work your way through to people's hearts and minds to kind of say, okay, who am I? I'm a follower of Christ, and Christ is my Lord. And what does that mean? The second piece, that's the perception management and discussion and alignment and all of that, and not covering up. Second is it has to reflect in the way I live, the way I make choices, the words that I use, the way I apologize. So it has to reflect in my life at work, and I cannot make it dichotomous, right? I be like this something here, something else here, and something else there. It doesn't work. It just adds unnecessary pressure on you, pressure on me, meaning, right? So, yeah, long answer, but it's been easier over the years. I found it easier to kind of talk about my faith to everybody.
Hmm. We've spoken about so many things. You have spoken about your role, about being a manager, about empowering people, about leadership, about inspiration. And when I put all these together, do you have any role model or somebody that you follow as you navigate, the challenges of uh, working in the corporate business world and thinking and living strategically and living and making decisions, with people in mind? Do you have
Mhm.
somebody that you look up to?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of them. I think there's a verse which says that in the let's say in the among counselors you're safe, something to that effect. I forget the exact verse. That in the counsel of many, yeah, I think in the counsel of many there is safety.
Right. Okay.
So I have a bunch of guys I look up to. As I mentioned, Jesus is my primary role model. There's no doubt about that. He's the guy who I follow every time, kind of looking at his people management skills. It's quite fascinating. In the Gospels, you can read about how he put these 12 people together who couldn't stay 1 minute together. If you actually look at their characters, right? So he
Right.
managed that team really well and turned them around to become world conquerors, right? Taking them from fishers of men, fishermen to fishers of men, and really conquering the whole world with the message. So I really love Jesus, and he's my role model. And the second category is really people in the Bible, right? I have a couple of people like Daniel. He worked in the corporate, right, in Babylon. I read his book like every year. I definitely go to Daniel to read how he managed through all of that, right? It's politics, and there's backstabbing, and there's disappointment, and you have to stand up for your faith, and all of those things that happen to you in the corporate world. He went through much more, even having his neck on the line. I love him. And
What
Apostle
stands out?
Paul.
What stands out to you about Daniel, Don? Before you go to the next
Yeah,
person? Yeah.
Daniel, it's just a guy who managed through all of that chaos beautifully. You know, I've never come across a guy who's managed, at least in the scripture, in a world. I mean, if you look at the king of Babylon, you couldn't get a more hedonistic guy,
Okay.
right? He did what he wanted to do. Period. Nobody questioned him, right? He even plucked out the eyes of the king of Israel, right? So he actually killed his sons in front of his eyes and he plucked his eyes out, saying, "That's the last thing you're going to remember." This is the guy who he's working for,
Okay.
and to
Yes.
work with him and to bring him to a point of surrender. I mean, kudos to that guy. I want to have so many conversations with Daniel, God willing, when I get to heaven. It's kind of understand how he operates. It's just brilliant. And
Okay.
so I want to be as compassionate like him, in the corporate world, because it's cutthroat in some sense, right? But also there's camaraderie, collaboration, but there's still an environment that you have to work with. You don't get to decide that environment, but you do get to react appropriately to that environment. And I
Okay.
think Daniel did a fantastic job of that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I could go on
Yeah.
about Daniel. It's one of my Apostle Paul is really great. I really like him as a leader. Him being able to build frameworks from his writing. I get a lot of framework.
Okay.
And as a manager, I think that strategy, structure, culture all come from this dude for me, honestly. And I borrowed his templates of frameworks that he's written from the Bible, written in the Bible by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. I love the way he writes, and he's got wonderful frameworks that I've borrowed over the years. Coming down to more local, my mom has been a great example for me. She's a great leader, and she has only ninth grade education, but I've never seen a better leader and a steward than her. I've had my dad for 9 years, but less. I reflect from his experiences. Uncle Barkos, I think you and I know, and has been a mentor to me. I've just enjoyed him quite a bit. He's actually been my dad for the last 15 years, in my heart. And last of all, Abe Lincoln. History. I know I'm in the U.S. Abe Lincoln really stands out. I've studied him quite a bit. I've read about him. I've seen some, obviously some movies that have come out, and and documentaries. I've never seen a humble guy
Hmm.
like Abe Lincoln being in such a position, um, especially in troubled times, right? They had the Civil War that was going on, and his leadership. That's where, I think I connect with them because it's chaos to order.
Right.
And I see the streak of Abe Lincoln and really the humility that he had towards God and working with people. We're all imperfect, and then we have to work towards a goal that seems imperfect. We have to still strive redemptively.
And the names that you have mentioned sound to be people who were more leaders than uh, managers in the corporate sense, right?
Yeah,
It's a trait.
yeah,
It's a character thing,
it definitely is a
right?
character thing,
Right.
and
Right.
and I think I'd say this: every manager is not a leader, but every leader is a good manager.
Right. Hmm.
Has to be. Otherwise, you're not a leader. You're not doing good.
And every person
So
can
the
be a leader, right? No matter where they are.
every person can be a leader. You need not be a manager to be a leader. Every manager is not a leader, however high they are, and every leader is a good manager. And those premises will jive together.
So Don, it sounds like working 12 to 14 hours a day is a natural thing for you, right? I'm not sure
Overwork
how your
all the
family
time.
takes this.
One of my bosses actually gave me a good um, line, and I've lived by. It's not about total time; it's about impact, right? So you can be with your family for 8 hours and have zero impact. You can be 10 minutes with them. They will miss you for the next 3, 4 hours. And so I've really taken that line up when I have to, and sometimes when I have to cut off, I cut off completely and I be with my family, but not for the sake of hanging out, but with the sake of, there should be a joy in that hangout. And sometimes you're chill, but I like that boss. He said, look, I play 15 minutes badminton, right? Badminton, in India with my daughter, and she loves it. And I'm fully engaged there. That's something that I try to do, kind of creating those impact and those memories with the girls. And not always, I struggle, with the long hours. Maya takes the beating, and he's kind of understood me a little more and, try and balance that out. But yeah, I struggle. 12 hours is not good. It needs to get down.
Okay. Yeah. And well, apart from work, is there what's important for you, Don? What's maybe the most one the most important thing, or maybe one or two things that's important for you outside of work?
Mm. Say sanity is one, I guess. I need to stay sane. No, but on a serious note, I'd say just friendships. I love friendships, and I try and be with people as much as I can. I'm a loner. I've grown up all alone as a single child, and after dad passed away, mom doesn't talk much. I think you probably know as well. She talks to only people who she's comfortable with, only when questions are asked. So I got very little from mom when I was growing up. So I grew up really alone and silent. So I started to read a lot of books when I was a little boy, and so I enjoy doing that. But now I've kind of flipped over and said I need to meet people. I need to spend more time with the humankind. So that's what I do. Weekends and time permits. And we have a lot of people. Oh, we used to have a lot of people over. COVID has really killed that. The second thing I love to write. I love to write. Again, it's going back into my own shell. And I have a lot of concepts that I doodle in my notebook, and I'm always thinking. It goes back to my strengths, right? The top 5 strengths is all about input, connectedness, and that synthesis, and strategic kind of thinking. And I'm always trying to kind of write up something or the other. So those are two things. One is more outward and people, and one is more inward and personal. yeah, obviously, read the Bible and meditate on the Bible a lot. Yeah, do that. And we do have a fellowship, Merck, Christian fellowship, in Merck. So that's a good thing. So we kind of put in some investments there as well.
Fantastic, Don. Fantastic. Just one final question. If you were
Sure.
not working in the corporate today,
I know.
what do you think you'd be doing?
I thought about the question a little bit, and I think I would have probably played cricket. Um, maybe I wrote like a Ranji team or something like that. Hopefully, I would have got my break into India. I did play cricket well, and actually, I don't know if you know this, but I was selected for Karnataka when I
Okay.
was when I was 10 years old for under 12.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I didn't pursue, unfortunately or fortunately. I was selected as a wicket keeping batsman, and I was really bold. I used to stand up to like medium pace bowlers up front on the in the stumps. People don't
Uh-huh.
generally kind of go up and stand in front, and I did some crazy things when I was young, and people really kind of saw some spark in me, and they said, "Hey, you've been selected for Karnataka under 12." And I said, "No, I want to go back home for the holidays." They said, "You have to stay back for holidays and be part of the camp." I said, "No, I'm not going to be part of the camp. I want to go home." So I missed that window, and maybe God kind of on purpose missed that. So I probably would have played cricket or become like a PE teacher or something, a physical education teacher or something like that. I don't know. I love sports. Um, Kind of lost a little bit of it now because of time, but yeah, something in sports.
Perhaps in the afterlife you could aspire to, not go home and stay back for the
I
the
know.
camp. Yeah,
I
thank you,
hope
Don.
there
You
are. I
have.
hope there are sport. I hope heaven has sports. I'm sure they will.
Oh
Maybe
yes,
some
they will. They
fun
will.
games, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, there'll
heaven
be.
will
There
have.
won't be any referee. Hopefully, there won't be any foul.
So there will be a referee, but who will, call justly. So yeah, thank you, Don.
Oh
It's late
man.
for you, and you have been kind, and I have enjoyed this
No, no, no.
conversation.
You see, when we started, my yawning went away, right? Because my engine is not geared up, right? When my engine starts to kind of fire, meaning my mind starts to fire, I kind of lose the. I still have some work left. I have to do some work, but it's personal work, but work nevertheless. But yeah, what's maybe let me reverse and ask you a question. What's been the transition like for you? From IC to manager.
Well, what you have said about about getting another side of the enterprise, understanding the bigger picture has been. Um, I could use the word phenomenal. It's something that I did not know. I did not know so many things happen behind the scene. We have a really good. My function is in documentation, right? It's the technical writing function. That's what I have been for 15, 16, 17 years, and we have a really good management team in this function, and I did not know so many things happen behind the scenes. Right now we are planning for business continuity, considering that the number of COVID cases in India is rising. Capacity planning, strategy, even succession, developing leaders within the team. I wasn't aware that so many things are done. So it's 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 uh, it's revealing, and it's exciting, and
Mm,
I understand everything that you said. I am yet to work it out about empowering people and getting things done from them in a way that is winsome, enabling them. You said about making people successful and even more successful than I am.
mm,
That's something that I see could happen because I have some really good people in my team, and to be honest, if I really work and if I really empower them, they can and they really could become more successful than I am. So the only thing getting in their way is me, which I don't want to.
mm,
Uh, so yeah,
mm.
it's been quite revealing, exciting, I would
That's
say.
great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of see how the sausage is made, as they say, right? In the US, is you can kind of see all the, back room, behind the
Right,
scenes. A
right.
lot of stuff
Yes,
happens. Yeah,
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that's quite
yeah,
revealing.
yeah. I have the kind of um, three paradigms thinking around when you have an issue management, right? So when you have issue management, you have kind of two ways that I think about is what has happened in the past you cannot change. What you have to do now, you have to be extremely diligent, and then how you can prevent. So it's kind of your time frame, right? Past, present, future, right? That paradigm. So especially when it comes to issue management, and 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 in that issue management, you have reactionary action, proactive action, right? So in management, you have to deploy all three. The success is when you start to move from reactionary all the way to proactive action, right? So kind of think about that. And we're putting out fires, which is reactionary and action, right? You have to react quickly to act now. But how do you kind of take that needle to proactive action? And that's where I think strategic thinking really helps. Um, just wearing that hat, thinking about those dimensions is helpful.
Yeah, for me, the biggest, the fear that I my worry of the one fear that I face is conflict management. People having problem because my tendency would be to just give an advice and move on and don't take it personally. Put the team first and just get on with things. But to understand that behind the conflict there is a troubled human being. It's
Right,
something that
right.
I don't think I'm good at. I need to be good at it, and that's one thing that scares me right now.
Mm.
I have a small team, and
Yeah,
right now there are no conflicts, but these are potential things that could happen.
right. Definitely, definitely. It's like issue and person, right? And we have to take both into consideration, but you have to put the person first in order to have the issue solved more, sustainably. But sometimes you have to solve the issue and work with the person to ensure that you understand the priority, but never forget to revisit with the person, right? And so kind of delineating that. Obviously you have organization, you have person, issue, organization, meaning people around, right? So to kind of, yeah, it's fascinating. It is the best field, Abhilash. I'm telling you, people management is a field that people will write till this world is over, till Christ comes back. We're going to keep writing about it because there's so many dimensions to it. It's crazy. Thank you, friends, for listening to that episode of Share the Well. And as we end the session, and as I was referring to the wonderful field of people management, I think is one of the most dynamic fields. I know there's a lot of interest in AI and machine learning and cloud and all of that, but I can tell you in these last 20 years and having or experiencing all of the new technology changes, there's no field that is as dynamic as people management. And I think it's lasted for many thousands of years, I guess, not just at work, but all the rest of the interactions that we have with one another as human beings. So I really think that this field is the most dynamic. I've really enjoyed this. It's one of the most challenging fields as well. Really each individual is so unique. And as we've always mentioned that we believe that each individual is made in the image of God, and it really is, there is intrinsic value, and that we've stuck to. And if you visit our website, you'll kind of hear some of that premise that we bring about. And Therefore, we really see this as an important step in whatever content we're producing, is to help people and to see people as God would see people. So, hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you like the episode, feel free to drop us a comment. Visit our website. It's sharethewell.community. Thank you for listening, and hope you have a wonderful weekend. God bless you.